Welcome back to another episode of Joe and Sophie Tell a Tale, and today's topic is
True crime.
true crime. So a very topical topic, if you will. There's a lot of podcasts out at the moment that talk about true crime. I think it's and there's a lot of books out, a lot of movies, a lot of TV shows.
It's definitely become a huge thing in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think it has been for a long time, but definitely lately, people
now
are
that
really...
Netflix is a thing.
Yep,
and
Netflix.
All those...
And obviously with the podcast, that was... that's like a not a new technology, but it's a new thing that people are really into.
Up-and-coming platform.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and people are really interested in just hearing stories
about serial killers.
About serial killers
on
or
their
about
way to work.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and it's that kind of stuff can be fun to listen to, even though it's
it's weird.
It is weird, and it's a morbid curiosity thing, like you were saying earlier.
That does lead into my first topic, which is why are people so obsessed with true crime?
Yeah.
And reading about murder and serial killers.
I actually had something written down about this. So this is because I was thinking about that exact topic. I didn't know that was the topic you were going to bring up today, but I was thinking about this very question. I reckon that the appeal of true crime, particularly with the sort of serial killer genre, on the one hand, you've got serial killers who seem to conform to those sort of identities that we see in movies and TV and books and stuff, like the wacky, sort of clever, psychotic serial killer, who's sort of scheming and always has, is always one step ahead of the police and that kind of thing. So it can be fun and sort of satisfying to read stories and you're kind of reading about someone real, but you're like, this guy just seems like he literally just came out of a movie. But on the other hand, I think it works the other way as well. It's really satisfying for us, viewers and consumers of media and TV and stuff, to hear about a real life killer who isn't anything like anything that we've heard before. People in real life who are murderers, but they don't seem to exhibit any of those kind of normal characteristics of, movie killers. Whereas in reality, they're just so much sicker and weirder, and, you can't ever understand how their minds are working and stuff. So, I think that's the appeal, is to get inside the mind of these people and kind of figure out whether they're understandable or not.
I think personally, I quite enjoy, especially with the documentaries, a lot of the books, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, I think was one of them.
Yeah, that's right.
Which it kind of follows the process of capturing the person.
Yeah. And
it just kind of plays out like a real life murder mystery.
Yeah, that's right.
And you don't have to bother about, watching a TV show. I don't know, it's just got a cool intrigue to it since it's real. So you're, reading this book and it's just what happens next to that guy who is actually dead? And I don't know why, but it makes it just a bit more fascinating and a bit more I can't believe they actually caught this real guy. It's one thing in a film for them to be I'll get you, Hannibal Lecter. But they don't. But then it's another thing for actual, serious detectives to, find a person that's been stalking people and killing them at random and things, and it's just man, that's awesome, and I love that process and all the science behind it. I love that stuff. So I think that's kind of where my fascination comes from is just the process of how the murderer killed and then how they eventually were caught.
Dear listeners, the following audio was taken while Joe and Sophie did not realise that the podcast software was still recording. We present it to you now for your listening pleasure.
True crime, true crime, true crime, true crime.
The hate I have for you.
The hate is limitless. Like the sands of the summer. Shut up, Mean Girls. So I mean, an argument at work with someone about what was more iconic, Mean Girls or White Chicks.
Mean Girls, man.
Definitely Mean Girls.
Yeah, 100%.
This girl I was arguing with, she went and asked someone else, and she was like, "Oh, what do you reckon is better, or more iconic, or whatever? White Chicks or Mean Girls?" And then I was just put them together. And then I think it was my boss she was talking to, and she was just "Oh, no, yeah, I'd say White Chicks," and I was like, "No, but Mean Girls has this," and then they were like, "No, but White Chicks is so funny," and I was just I think I just really like Mean Girls. I don't know, maybe I'm biased here. I think it's just a really good movie. And I've never seen White Chicks, so.
Oh, I have.
Yeah.
But I think the only kind of bit from White Chicks that is iconic is that bit where Terry Crews is in the car, just like miming to like, "And I need you,
Yeah.
and I love you."
Yeah, that's the only
That's
bit
like
I know.
the only bit, yeah.
That's the only bit I know. I haven't actually seen the
Whereas
movie,
Mean
but
Girls has got like 20 bits that everyone quotes, like
everything is like a
Go,
daily
Glen
quote.
Coco.
Yeah,
Like-
it's like that movie's like 15 years old now or something, but it's still like referenced
Even
every
though
day.
it's got Lindsay Lohan in it, it's still great.
Yeah, yep, that's fair enough. I know you're not in the Lohan. You're not a Low fan. But I am a Low fan. I'm a Low fan, man. All right, should we get back to podcast now?
I'm a Glen Coco gal.
Glen Coco gal. Someone at work was
Not even in it.
I was eating the yan yans, you know, the little
Yeah.
breadstick and you put in the chocolate. And I was eating some of them at work, and someone was just like, "Oh, is that like Pocky?" And I was like, "Oh, I'll go with Pocky in a pinch, but I'm a yan yan man." And that's the phrase that I live my life by now is.
Well, for one, Pocky's way better, so I don't know what you're talking
Nah.
about. You crazy.
No, it's all about yan yan.
Yeah, it's too thick. The bread's too thick.
That's
I
what's
don't
better.
want that.
That's what's good about it. You dip it in,
No
and then
one
you just
ever
like.
buys that for the bread. Okay?
You're dead to me. You're dead to me. I eat it.
You drink the chocolate and you chuck the sticks out.
No, it's all about the sticks. I will admit that there's always 2 sticks left over at the end that I just don't know what to do with because I've run out of
you
Nutella.
throw them out because they're trash.
No,
if you
I
liked
eat
them.
them.
You'd eat them.
You leave them in your mouth and you wait for them to dissolve, and then it becomes
You're
a weird little melty twig.
Filthy, filthy man.
Yep. Anyway, true crime.
Alright.
So, we done with your topic?
I mean, yeah, alright.
Done with your crap?
Alright, we'll go to your one.
Did you have more things you wanted to say for your topic?
Pretty much, just wanted to say that, I like murder.
You like murder?
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
I'll abide by it.
Yeah, I mean, interesting, because a lot of, the criticism for true crime is that, does it sensationalise
Yeah.
crime? I'd say yes.
100% yes.
I mean, yeah, a lot of them, it has to rely a lot on the entertainment value.
Yeah, like, I'm not gonna... That kind of goes into my next topic that I'll talk about later. But
Okay, alright, well, don't give any spoilers away.
Preview. Just kind of talking about, like, what makes a good
True crime.
true crime, like, novel.
True crime book, yeah.
Which is, like, if it's just boring step-by-step stuff, like, oh, murderer did this. It's like, that's boring.
Yeah.
But, so they've got to be like, oh, in the midst of the night, the murderer.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it has to have an element of fiction to
dramatizes
it.
it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, like with Truman Capote, who wrote In Cold Blood, the first, what is widely believed to be the very first true crime book ever written. It's not a novel because novel implies
whatever.
fiction.
It's got pages,
But incidentally, though, it is In Cold Blood is often called the first true crime novel because Capote.
Then I was right.
You are right.
What
Yeah. You are right.
What are we arguing about?
But Capote sort of infamously put in a lot of artistic touches and kind of embellished scenes and sort of made up some bits. So everyone's kind of like, it's based on real stuff with all the real names of the people.
He
but he also
best friends with the
with one of the killers. Yeah, he was also best friends with Harper Lee. Do you know that? Who wrote To Kill a Mockingbird? And they actually went to Kansas together to interview all the people, and just before she published To Kill a Mockingbird. So a little interesting historical literary tidbit there for you.
So what was your topic?
My topic is Edmund Pearson. Do you know who he is?
No.
Okay, well, so to talk about Edmund Pearson, I kind of have to go into the history of true crime and true crime publications in Britain.
Ooh,
right? So
I like that.
in the years, this is pretty cool. There's some interesting stuff here. So in the years 1550 to 1700, lots of crime pamphlets were like sent around England everywhere. So they were basically little pamphlets. So I don't know what that means, like 10, 20 pages or whatever. Just kind of, or even like 2 pages or whatever.
10, 20?
10, 20, 2, I don't know. And each little pamphlet would just deal with like a different crime or a different murder. And basically it was just kind of, from what I could look, I was looking it up on Wikipedia, and some of them would have little like moral codes in there, like murder is bad, and that kind of thing. Like, this guy's getting hanged because he committed a crime, and do not commit crimes because you'll die. But basically they would just contain a bit of info about the murder, who the prosecutor is, who the judge is, the main players, so like the perpetrator, the victim,
The main players.
the main players in the tale, and what the outcome was. So hanging, or
that was about
some
it.
kind of execution. That was always ended with hanging.
Or nothing.
At the same time, did you know that ballads were written from the killer's point of view?
I did read a bit about that,
Yeah.
actually. Which, what what the hell?
I know.
What is that? Why?
So it would have just been some, like town bard who's just like, and
I killed the man, I raped the man.
But what I want to talk about is a period of time when people started writing about murder a little bit differently, right? So first of all, we had this guy named Thomas de Quincey. Now, he wrote this sort of essay called On Murder Considered as One of the Fine Arts. And he
That's
published
the most pretentious name and pretentious title I've ever heard.
I know.
I hate him already.
No, he did that on purpose because it was actually a work of satire.
Oh, okay, alright, he's alright.
Yeah, it was published in 1827, and it's very similar to, have you ever heard of Jonathan Swift's Modest Proposal?
No.
So Jonathan Swift is the guy who wrote Gulliver's Travels and some of the other stuff, but he wrote this essay called A Modest Proposal, and I can't remember the full title, but it's some really long, similarly sort of bureaucratic sounding thing. It's like a modest proposal on the something blah 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 blah. But basically, it was at a time when poverty was at an all-time high. No one could get any food, so his modest proposal was that people start having babies just so they can eat them.
Yes.
And that was the whole joke.
Yeah.
But it's still to this day, like, people read it and think it's real, and it's like passed around because it's it's satire. So it's like it's comedy disguised as reality. So Thomas de Quincey's On Murder Considered as One of the Fine Arts was kind of presented as if it was like at a gentleman's club or something, and it was someone kind of trying to put forth the idea that murder should be enjoyed for its aesthetic elements or something like that. And about 60 years after that, so that was kind of like, that wasn't true crime, but he was kind of a writer in that period, and he first started writing about crime with a kind of satirical, playful kind of way. So, and I think that was kind of one of the first times where that kind of thing started to happen.
Let's kill people because it looks cool.
Yeah, exactly,
Basically,
yeah.
I love that.
Let's eat babies because we're hungry. Exactly, it's all the same thing.
Yo,
so then this guy, this Scottish, did you say moo?
Mood.
Moo.
Yo, moo, man.
Moo.
Am I right or am I right, cows, huh?
So then this dude named William Ruffhead, who was, I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it. He was a Scottish lawyer. He started writing and publishing essays about various notable British murder trials that he attended. So that's he's kind of considered as the front runner of the true crime genre. He was sitting down, watching all these crime cases unfold, and then he was writing essays about them and publishing. People were reading them. So now that brings me to my topic, the guy I want to talk about, my new favourite person in the world. His name's Edmund Pearson. Pearson was seen as a pioneer of the true crime genre. He was a librarian at the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. And that's why I love him.
Wanker.
He's just this cool... No,
No.
He's Pearson. He's a hero. He's like my brand new hero.
All
Okay,
right.
so this is the thing. Pearson had a column in the Boston Evening Transcript called The Librarian, which
him?
it was just him sharing humorous essays and stories about his life as a librarian. I know, he's the best.
Alright, now he's kind of cute. Alright.
I know, he's great.
In a little tweed jacket.
That is genuinely how I imagine him, with two monocles. He could just wear a pair of glasses, but he just has two monocles. No, he didn't.
You have a white afro as well?
Yes. So at one point, during his time writing all these little stories and adventures and stuff, he wrote a story called, he wrote an essay. Everyone, like his friends and family, loved it so much that he decided to expand it to a 34-page pamphlet, which he called The Old Librarian's Almanac. And basically, the whole thing was kind of a joke. It was like this librarian's almanac supposedly written by an old librarian in the 1700s. So he was writing in the early 20th century, so in like the 1920s. So this almanac was supposed to be, like the life of a librarian back in the 1700s. But a bunch of newspapers thought it was real. So again, like with the Modest Proposal, with all that kind of stuff, people took it and thought, oh, this is actually a real thing, and started reviewing it. So the New York Times even reviewed it as a real life thing.
People are so stupid.
Yeah, people are pretty stupid. Not
that they're any better now.
Yeah, exactly.
Worse, probably.
I know. He even had a thing in there called The Curse Against Book Stealers, which I was actually going to look up, but I didn't get a chance to before this, but I will afterwards. So, that'll be hopefully an interesting read.
We can
we'll do it. Yeah. We'll do a postscript.
Break into a library and just throw dust at people. Be like, big on a thief.
Yeah.
I'm imagining it.
Exactly. Yeah. He made it up as like a faux medieval kind of curse against people who steal books. But it's to this day. This was according to Wikipedia anyway. To this day, it's still shared as if it was a real life
librarians
thing.
Just sit around in the back rooms,
it's
like conjuring.
This ancient cabal of warlock librarians.
Is he
just
dead?
He died. He died. I didn't write it down, but he did.
He died.
He died. He died in 1950 40 something, I
He-
think.
well-
But he was only 57, so
damn.
he probably would still be dead anyway. He was born in 1880,
Oh
so
damn, yeah. Well, he's
Yeah.
looking. His ghost is looking on these people spreading his book around,
Exactly.
thinking that it's still written. He's like,
Yeah. You fools.
That's how I think he laughs.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, his little monocle falls off. He's like, no,
Oh.
at least I still have my other one on. Anyway, so he wrote a book called Studies in Murder in 1924, which contained the case of Lizzie Borden.
Oh, yeah.
And his record of the case of Lizzie Borden, who was a woman in somewhere, who murdered...
Oh, she lived in Fall River.
Fall River, yep. And she murdered her
Stepfather,
father and mother,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, with an axe.
Axe, yeah.
And Pearson's account of the Lizzie Borden case is still considered the definitive record of the case. So, yeah, basically he wrote this book called Studies in Murder, and it was like 5 kind of essays, like true crime essays, where he kind of just like looked at these murders from all these different angles. So one of them was the Lizzie Borden case, and then there were 4 other cases in there as well. So I was desperately, preparing for this podcast. I was really trying to find some of his writing online. You can find some stuff, but I couldn't find anything from Studies in Murder.
Oh.
But I could find the only thing I could find was was a review of a 1999 reprint of the book.
Oh.
So the person who wrote the review was named Amy Gilman Srebnick, and she wrote that that one of the great things about Pearson is that he took a lot of interest in the entertainment value of true crime writing. So he wasn't just writing sort of scholarly research; he was actually trying to make it sort of entertaining to read, but he was also sort of really interested in the details of daily life in that time period. And she even says that his settings have a richness characteristic of Conan Doyle or Poe.
Oh.
Yeah, it's kind of like...
Copo.
Yeah, it sort of said... Yeah, Copo.
Coy.
So what I love about Pearson is that he was someone who obviously loved words and language and books. But most of all, I think Pearson was someone who just loved writing about stuff. He wrote columns about books and book reviews for different publications, and he wrote 3 books about books. He wrote one called Books in Black or Red, Dime Novels, and another book called Queer Books, which
Yeah.
I don't think was about what you would think it would be
Highly,
about.
probably not.
But his book, he wrote one of his books that I just mentioned called Dime Novels, or Following an Old Trail in Popular Literature, which was about the old pulpy suspense novels from the mid-19th century. So, books that were like, you could buy them for a dime, and they were like considered cheap and gory. And even in his book, which I did find online to read, which I'll be reading later, in that book, Pearson calls them a literary pestilence.
Damn, throwing the shade there.
But he still considers them worthy of scholarly research, which is why he wrote a 93-page book about them.
Like, it's just trash. 93 pages.
Yeah, 93
I
pages
shall
later,
write
he's
on
like,
them.
they are great. I've fallen in love with them.
He's like, still trash, but good.
Pretty good. So that's what I love about Pearson, is that he had this boundless enthusiasm for so many different things: true crime, popular culture, dime novels, and anything else that caught his fancy.
I've come around to
Yeah,
good
I
old
love
EP.
it. But one other thing I'll mention is that I think what I kind of noticed doing research for this episode is that there seems to be a bit of a crossover between the true crime genre and writers who are just interested in culture and how the world works. I don't think it can be a coincidence that you get someone like Thomas de Quincey and Edmund Pierson, 2 pioneers of the true crime genre, who were also known for writing convincing works of satire. I think it says a lot about the appeal of true crime. It interests us because it's part of the world, and we all like hearing about weird, crazy stuff that's going on around us or that's happened in the past. It takes someone like Pearson, someone who's passionate about that kind of stuff, to make it into a good, interesting read. It also helps that a story about someone getting murdered can never be boring.
I like this guy now. He's got the whole librarian vibe to him. He's all professory, but he's also just a wacky guy who likes murder. I'm into
Yeah, I think he was just a cool guy. He was just like, I just imagine him kind of walking around the Library of Congress just pulling out random books, and he's like, oh, this is cool, I'm going to write about this. Or just like, he just loved everything. But not only was he worked at the Library of Congress, which is, like the foremost... Yeah, it was a library. So it was this, palace to knowledge. And
you can be pretty pretentious too sometimes, actually. Know what I'm saying?
And he was, if you're comparing me to Edmund Pearson, I will take that as a compliment, and
the
I'll
other
run
guy.
all the way down the street with it, and I'll run back.
The other guy, Dushhound or whatever.
Dushhound.
What's his name?
Roughhead.
Oh, yeah.
What? Or Thomas de Quincey.
Oh, De Quincey, yeah.
I've said so many
I
random
got the
names
D
now.
from somewhere. So.
Action. So, he's like doing all this scholarly research, but then at the same time, he writes books about dime novels and pulpy paperbacks and stuff, which I think today is kind of akin to someone like Charles Dickens, but like if he'd also just done blogs about The Bachelor or something as well. Like,
God.
you know, like, he's just like...
I would respect him less.
It's just this love of highbrow and lowbrow culture, which I think is really cool, so...
Well, I'll pop over to my second topic then, that I
please do! Pop away! Pop away!
What? That I briefly cast upon, which is what makes a good true crime novel.
What makes a good true crime novel?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So I've read probably just like 3 or 4.
Gotta have a murder.
Well, okay, that's the one. That's the one thing you gotta have. That and pages, I presume.
Murder and pages, that's all you need.
Yeah. It's just like in The Shining, with like where he writes like no sleep and no play makes Jack a dull boy, but it's just murder.
Murder.
Like,
Type,
this
man.
is a good book.
You've done it again, Pearson.
Yeah, I bet that could be a thing today, and someone would be like, "It's so intelligent.
Yeah.
It speaks to me on so many levels." I think what makes a good book is probably like the language it writes with and how they depict the murder. I used to work at a bookshop, and it got so boring. I was in a little section by myself. It was like a little add-on extension to the bookshop that was just a little square in the center of a shopping center.
Oh yeah, that's right. Little stall where you just work.
Where
on
I just
your
had
own,
a bunch of books, and I had a little laptop, and I had a little scanner that I just scanned anything that people bought. But it was so boring there because like no one really walked past there, especially on a weekday.
Yeah.
And I was just completely by myself, and so I would just pick up some of the random books and be like, And we had a little.
I'll read this.
I'll read this until someone comes by.
Yeah, cool.
And we had a little true crime section. So every time I was scheduled to work on that little section for the day, I'd just pick up a new true crime book and see if I'd like it, and then if I did, I'd buy it.
Cool.
But I didn't buy any of them because they all sucked.
Well, that's the thing. There's so many true crime books that are really crappy.
But they're all bad. No, they're not all bad. But the ones I would pick up were just little small ones, and they would always start off with just like December 1953. A house. And I was like, oh my god. Like, you're talking to me about a house and like the date. So that was a cool thing to think about.
I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
Yeah.
Was that it kind of started off kind of similarly, but it just went straight on into like the murder and like what was happening, and then a bit of the story of the woman who was writing it, write it to his wife, and then it was really interesting and gripping because like she was telling it from her point of view as this outsider, not a detective or anything.
That's what I love about I'll Be Gone in the Dark. Michelle McNamara, by the way, is the name of
Mrs. Ratatouille.
Mrs. Ratatouille, or Patton Oswalt's wife. You can tell that it kind of speaks to the heart of people who love unsolved mysteries. It's like she's clearly obsessed with it, and she even talks about Patton Oswalt being on the red carpet and stuff. And she's just kind of getting updates about this murder case that this serial killer case that she's been obsessed with for decades.
He's like, you can go.
And he's like, you can go, and she's just like off, like researching all this stuff and like trying to find out clues and everything. So it talks to why we, it's like these books and these cases can be so sensationalistic, but at the same time, they just grip people's imagination so much that you just want to read them and you want to find out more and you want to get involved in the case. And
so is that what you think makes a good true crime novel? When it grips you?
I think it has to grip you. Yeah, it's
I think any book has to do that.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, true crime.
Like you really want to find out what happened.
And also, I think the most important for me, you can pick up a true crime book and within the first page usually, or even usually just by like looking at the cover or looking at the back. I know they say you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but in this case, you can.
100%,
Yeah. I reckon there's so many true crime books that you pick up and you can tell straight away that they're just really trashy.
Crappy stock in each photo of like a barn and a shadow.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
And they're almost like taking that kind of sensational glee of like vicariously living this this crime. Whereas something like I'll Be Gone in the Dark is that rare book that only comes along so often that is like properly compassionate and is still thrilling and so sensational because of the nature of the crimes, but at the same time is so compassionate and so heartfelt because the woman trying to solve the case is so dedicated to finding out sort of what's going on, and she actually wants to get justice for these people. And I think that's what separates a pulpy true crime book that you could sort of read on the train to something that actually sort of changes your life and that you're going to be thinking about for the rest of your life. So that's why I'll Be Gone in the Dark, I think, is the best true crime
definitely
book
one of
I've
my
ever
favorites.
read. Yeah, and she died before she finished writing it as well.
And then the murderer was actually caught.
And then the murder,
which sucks.
Yeah, it sucks, but
she coined the whole Golden State Killer thingy. Like that's what he was referred to as, and that's what she wrote in her. She was the first person to call.
That's right. Yeah, because she gave him the name, the Golden State Killer. Yeah, because before that, I think he was the East Area Rapist. Yeah, and then he was the original Night Stalker, and because so many people hadn't put together that he was the same guy. Yeah. But then, obviously, people figured it out and stuff, and then that's when she got interested in it, and that's when she gave him the name, the Golden State Killer. Yeah. So,
I mean, it sucks that she died though before he was captured. Like,
I remember when it was the news came out that he'd been caught, and Patton Oswalt came out with like a tweet, and he was just like, "We did it, we got it, like we got him."
But I think what makes it more interesting and makes you not want to put it down is because it's real. Yeah, it's kind of like that thing. I think when I first watched that film with funny looking guy,
Fargo.
Yeah, Fargo. Yeah. I forgot Steve Buscemi's name as well.
How can you forget Steve Buscemi's name?
I don't know. Dog scat.
Dog scat. Just smell the dog scat and the melted tires.
Yeah, I first watched it. I think I was probably like 12 or 13 or something. Yeah. Which I shouldn't have watched it, but whatever. I do what I do. And
I do what I want.
It came up with, this is a true story, which is 100% a lie.
Yeah.
That I know that.
I remember watching Fargo with like mum and her being like, "Oh, this is a true story." So yeah.
It was the Coen brothers.
Yeah. Joel and Ethan.
So I was I was scared, especially when it came to the wood chipper scene. Yeah. Because I immediately just thought, this actually happened to someone. This is crazy, terrifying. Now I kind of laugh about it. Then when I found out it wasn't true crime, I was like, oh, what? I was like offended. The part that when you're reading these novels and you know that this stuff's happening to a real person just gives it even more kind of like emotional kind of like intensity.
A lot of people say that, like true crime is so sensationalist and that to sort of want to read that stuff, even though everyone does and everyone is interested in reading about that kind of stuff. But there does seem to be this kind of...
Except boring people.
Yeah. But there does seem to be this kind of belief that people who do are kind of sick or morbid or have no kind of
soul,
empathy and that kind of thing. But maybe it's the opposite, because maybe people who watch fictional movies of people getting murdered and people getting tortured and that kind of thing, you could say, okay, you're enjoying that entertainment value, but none of it's real. But then you read a book about that kind of stuff actually happening, and you sort of take some kind of pleasure in it. Obviously, you're not actually like enjoying seeing that, but you're enjoying the read because it's a visceral thrill. And people say, oh, that makes you a bad person for enjoying that, but it doesn't, because maybe it makes sort of violence and crime actually more real to you, and it gives you a better understanding and a better perspective of the kind of things that are happening in the world. It makes you actually get closer to your own feelings of empathy and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I still have no emotions, but you're right.
Yeah.
So
it's time for quiz time with Joe and Soph. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Quiz Time.
All right, so my first one is I had to change it because I found out you knew who you knew what In Cold Blood was.
Yes, yeah.
Which kind of revolved around my first question.
Yep.
So originally it was, what is the title of the first ever true crime novel?
Which would have been true. Which would have been In Cold Blood by Truman Capote.
So I've changed it to what was the title of the second ever true crime novel?
Not only was Truman Capote a true crime writer, he was also a true man. Truman Capote.
Jim Carrey.
What?
Truman Show.
Truman. Sorry, go back to your question.
Right. What was the title of the second ever true crime novel? Is it A, Till Death Do Us Part, B, Helter Skelter, or 3...
Steve Buscemi.
I don't... Okay. A Stab in the Rectum is worth 3 in the Bush.
What?
Which one is it?
So I'm going to say A Stab in the Rectum is your made-up one.
Is it?
I hope to God that it is. I know that In Cold Blood was published in 1966. I know that Helter Skelter was published in the early 70s. What was the other one?
Till Death Do Us Part.
I'm going to say... see, I felt like when Helter Skelter came out, there was already an established tradition of true crime.
So it's between A Stab in the Rectum is worth 3 in the Bush And Till Death Do Us Part.
I'm going to say it's Till Death Do Us Part because I feel like when Helter Skelter came out, even though I'm pretty sure Helter Skelter is still, to this day, the highest grossing, best-selling
Everyone
true crime
wants
book
to know
about Charlie Manson.
Charlie.
Charlie Man. So...
You're going with Till Death Do Us Part?
Till Death Do Us Part.
No.
No.
I made up Till Death Do Us Part.
Oh, what? It's the stab in the rectum.
Yeah. No, it's not. I made that one up too. It's Helter Skelter.
Oh, it is Helter Skelter.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure from
okay.
what I could gather, like In Cold Blood came out in 1966. I wrote 5 or whatever. And Helter Skelter came out in 1974.
Oh, okay.
So that was kind of like, yeah.
So there could have been something in between, but
probably
we don't
more
know.
minor that I just couldn't find.
Yeah,
So
well, that's right.
either Helter Skelter just overshadowed it so much by being so big,
because it is such a
or my hours of research amounted to nothing, just like my life.
Okay.
All right, your question.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question. All right.
Well, that's how these things normally
That
go.
is how it goes. Okay, now my first question revolves around Truman Capote, the true man himself.
Jim Carrey.
Okay, so Truman Capote wrote In True Blood, widely believed to be the first modern work of true crime. Which of the following actors has not played Truman Capote in a film?
Okay.
1. Philip Seymour Hoffman.
He did. I think I read that.
2. Tony Jones.
Don't know those.
He's Dobby.
Pretty sure it's him.
3. Stanley Tucci.
Who's that?
Stanley Tucci is the bald guy from The Lovely Bones.
Okay.
The guy from Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah, I can see he's a serial. He was already a killer in that.
But Toby Jones, the guy who plays Dobby, he is, for anyone who watches Sherlock out there, he's the I'm a serial killer guy.
Yeah, I know, but like still.
Oh, wait. I also have a picture here of Truman Capote that I thought I'd show you. I know you guys can't see it at home.
To show me a picture of him.
Just so you can see who might have played him.
Okay, he does look exactly like...
like Toby Jones.
Yeah. Alright. Okay, alright. Lovely Bones dude.
Lovely Bones dude. Is that your final Stanley Tucci?
Yep. Tooch.
You're correct. Yep, Stanley Tucci never played Truman Capote. So, yeah, funnily enough, Philip Seymour Hoffman and I think I said Tony Jones earlier. It's actually Toby Jones, the guy who plays Dobby.
Toby, Jonesy, whatever.
Jonesy. Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
So Philip Seymour Hoffman and Toby Jones both played Truman Capote in 2 different movies in the same year. They both came out in...
Two?
I don't know. I remember it happening, and I was just like, huh? 2000... So, yeah, Philip Seymour Hoffman played Capote in the movie Capote in 2006. Toby Jones, Dobby, played Truman Capote in the movie Infamous in 2006.
He does look exactly like him, though.
He genuinely looks exactly like him.
I urge you to go look at a picture of both of them.
Yeah.
Because that was uncomfortable.
You will be shocked to your core.
They are the same man.
Yeah. Okay, what's your second question for me?
Hey, now look at my little notebook here.
Okay, sorry.
My little notebook here.
My bad.
Alright, so Small Sacrifices by Anne Rule is about A group of wannabe witches who capture young students and drink their blood.
Ooh.
B, a husband who kills his family then himself, believing them to be wicked and sinful. Or C, a mother who shoots her 3 children and says that she was attacked by a man attempting to carjack her.
What was the name of the book?
I already forgot.
Don't you have it written down?
Yeah. Where is it though? Oh yeah, Small Sacrifices.
Small Sacrifices.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it was the Coven of Witches.
Coven of Witches?
Wannabe Witches.
That's my no sound.
Oh, damn it! I thought it was the yes sound. So it's not the Wannabe Witches.
No, it's not.
Well, of course it's not the Wannabe Witches, because if there was a book about Wannabe Witches, it would be called Wannabe Witches.
That is actually a true murder though.
Or it would be called Wender Wonderly and the Wannabe Witches. That's the first in my Wender Wonderly series that I just invented.
No. That is actually a real crime though.
Oh, is it?
That you can
commit?
Watch. That you can do if you wish. You can watch. There's a show on Netflix called Evil Women or something like that. But the true answer is a mother who shoots her children, saying that she was attacked by a man attempting to carjack her.
Wow, and it was proven that she was actually the one who killed them?
100%. Like she's like she shot 3 of her children, but 2 of them lived. One was in a coma for a while.
Yeah.
And then when they awoke, they testified against her.
They're
saying,
like, mother shot us. And she's like, it was the man. Do you
carjack her! He's like, mother, no.
Mother, no. You're embarrassing yourself.
Yeah.
It's just like really sassy babies, like Stewie from Family Guy.
That was actually a Forensic Files episode as well.
Oh, okay. Which of the following is not a book about Ted Bundy? 1, The Stranger Beside Me by Anne Rule. 2,
Why are you laughing?
because Anne Rule was in your one, so I thought you probably looked up all this random stuff about Anne Rule, but obviously you haven't.
Damn you, Anne Rule.
Damn you, Anne Rule. 2, Violent Mind by Al Carlisle. 3, The Trail of Ted Bundy, Digging Up the Untold Stories by Kevin M. Sullivan.
I think
4,
that one's got Ted Bundy in it.
4, The Phantom Prince, My Life with Ted Bundy by Elizabeth Kendall. 5, Bundy Bloody Bundy by Harriet Stoker.
Did you make some of them up?
I made one of them up.
Is it one of the Bundy ones? Because I think it's Bundy Bloody Bundy. I mean, I can't even say
I know.
it.
Me too.
Did you make that up?
It's actually Bundy Bloody Bundy, but it should have been Blunday. Bunday Bloody Bunday.
See, you made that one up. That's no one put that as a
by
book.
Harriet Stoker.
You're Harriet Stoker.
I am.
Did you make that one up?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, so it's the other one.
So yeah,
Right.
all the other ones were real. Well, you got 2 for 2. Did you have another question for me, or
No, you got 2 because you suck.
I got 2 right?
No.
Oh wait, no. Oh.
I'm saying
Yes.
You don't get another question, but you got none of them right. So,
Okay. Well, I think that's the end of today's
Yeah.
episode. So, congratulations, everyone, for listening. You win a biscuit shaped like Ted Bundy's face. Catch us next week for when we'll be talking about my favourite topic so far, the exciting world of fonts.
It sounds more boring than it will be.
Hopefully.
great.
We don't know. We haven't recorded it yet, so
It will be good.
tune in next week and hear an exciting tale
you
about fonts.
later.
See ya. All right. Joe out.
So far.